What's up, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of ASAP, the Afrikan Social Activism Playbook. I am one of your hosts, T. Jamal, joined as always by my wonderful sister, Michelee. What's going on with you?
Hey, brother. Good morning to you. And I'm doing pretty good. Just had my workout a little while ago, feeling nice and motivated for what is the rest of the day that's to come.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm still trying to stay consistent. Keep me accountable. Hold me accountable, okay? Hold me accountable. Make sure that I'm keeping up with it. I have I tend to phase out of different things sometimes. So
we
just
all
keep me
have that.
consistent.
That's why the village concept is so important. Accountability is important.
I'm
We
telling you.
all need each other. We all need to depend on one another. And honestly, it just starts with knowing what's going on with people and just talking about accountability, where accountability doesn't mean like fussing at a person. It just means knowing what's going on and checking in. Sometimes you don't have to start out with tough love. It can just be, hey, so how's the exercising going? Or even just talking about my own commitment to exercise and all those things. It encourages people. I respond so much better off of encouragement than I do out of punitive actions or responses. Like you come at me punitively, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't work at all, but I'm much more of a positive reinforcement type person. Like, tell me what I've done correctly, and then I will want to prove to you that I can keep that up, and I will want to get more adulation. So I will do more to get that again. Other than you talking down and saying what I didn't do, then I'm the type of person to be like, oh, I didn't do good when I know I put my effort in. So I'm gonna be like, you. I had a boss one time, and I know this ain't got nothing to do with the show, but we just talking about personality types. I had a boss one time. I was working at TGI Fridays, and it was a job that I didn't really need. Right, I was working there in an interim. I was like out of school for a moment, and I was just looking to keep my life balance. I needed something to do, but I knew I was way smarter than having a job at TGI Fridays. I didn't need it, so they'll talk to anybody any kind of way at these places. So he does a evaluation of me, and I'm just a busser, right? I'm not a waiter. I'm just a greeter and a busser. And he sits me down and he says, you are like, from a scale of a 1 to 10, I was a 1. I had to stop myself from punching this man in the face.
Okay, my goodness.
And I'm like, I know I greeted all the customers. I smiled. I showed them to the tables. I pre-bussed the tables. I did everything that was asked of me. And a 1, I was like, in my brain, and I didn't know how to articulate it then. I wish I did, because I was like 19. I wish I knew how to say, this is not the way to get me to do what you want. This is not how you're going to encourage me to do a better job. Tell me the things that I am doing, and then you can tell me ways that I could improve. But you just saying that I'm a 1 out of a 10. A 1 out of a 10 is somebody who's about to get fired, who don't show up to work on time, who stands around and lollygags. That wasn't me. And so that heated me. That was 2007.
I'm sure.
And
that's
that's
like when you get points on the SAT for just writing your name. Like,
exactly.
I know I did more than that.
Right. So that right there, and that's just a message. I said that because sometimes we, even in our communities, when we say hold me accountable, when we ask one another of these things, we are people don't like accountability because it always comes off, or it seems to come off as punitive a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be. Like when you, as my sister, just ask me to hold you accountable, all I have to say is, hey, Mish, how's exercising going?
Right.
How you feeling? Is the soreness going away? You know, after the third day, you're not sore no more. Just make it a conversation. Be a friend. Be a brother. Be a sister. Love somebody. Like
Right. That's
it
okay
goes a
too.
long way. Like,
Yeah, it can be difficult sometimes. But for something like working out, sometimes I need to be shamed. Sometimes just shame me into it. But I totally agree with that. I feel
that's
you.
after you already have seen, you've already done the first approach.
Right, exactly.
You've done the like subtle drops. You've done the putting it into conversation. And then if you see somebody falling off, or you like, well, you know, I was trying to stay away from sugar, but I ate a cupcake today, or I drank a milkshake. And it's like, look, you are doing this to yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I need to hear. Like, get it together, okay?
Yeah, so there are variances. I'm coming up with this thing called like a spectrum, a love spectrum. So it goes from the worst extreme of soft love, of being an enabler, to the extreme of tough love, to the point where it's not really love anymore, and finding that balance in there where you have a little bit of both.
Right.
So I'm coming up with that. That's going to be in one of probably my second book. My first book is almost done, but it's probably going to be in my second book. But anyway, like we've been talking this week about the Black freedom struggle and how long it's been, and how prevalent it still is, right? And understanding that when we talk about the freedom struggle, anytime that you lose something, even if you gain it back, it will forever be a struggle to sustain it. So once Europeans hit the shores of Africa, even before the slave trade started, we were in a freedom struggle. And we've been in that since, I'll probably say, around the 15th century up until right now. And we will forever be in a Black freedom struggle, because once we get our goals, we have to maintain our status. We have to continue to improve after every generation. There is no finish line. And that's the thing that we have to get in our brains. That's why we need one another. That's why we need cooperation, because it is heavy to carry this at all times. This is why you and I are trying to make it where, you know, showing the other side of activism, where we can be human, where we can laugh, where we can do things in the midst of staying focused and fighting. And one of those ways is like sports coming back. A lot of people were concerned that people would be too distracted to cheer for their team and still be conscious of what's happening in the world.
Right.
And what we saw was the spotlight on someone like Naomi Osaka, or the basketball players in the bubble who put Black Lives Matter on the court, who wore it on their jerseys as their name, you know, say her name. And at every press conference, they were saying, you know, arrest the people who killed Breonna Taylor, right?
Right.
Those things put those things in a spotlight where if there weren't sports and they didn't have that highlighted moment of victory or adulation or post-game press conferences, it wouldn't have made the same impact coming from those same high-tier people, right? Celebrated individuals. If it was just on Twitter, it wouldn't have been the same. So I don't think that it has to be a distraction. And I brought that up because an interesting thing happened. Where you want to start? You want to start with the hush money, or you want to start with the ridiculousness from the sheriff?
Well, I guess, since we were already just talking about sports, we can start with this.
Okay. All right.
And sadly, it's in my city, so.
Yeah. So
ridiculous.
Let's just play the clip, and then we can discuss exactly what our thoughts are.
Okay, so well, I mean, right. So basically, these are other people
These
just
are
talking about.
sports analysts.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Let's talk about this sheriff who made this challenge to LeBron James. He wants LeBron James to do something out in Los Angeles. What's your opinion on this? This is craziness. Mike Smith didn't want to talk about it, but I know you were tweeting about it. What are your thoughts on it?
Like I said, just so everybody knows that watching. Sorry, Vinny. Just so everybody knows that's watching. Like, so there was an unfortunate, obviously, a killing of 2 police officers in Los Angeles, and the LA County Sheriff challenged LeBron to double the reward money, and then the friends at a certain national news network called Fox News decided, of course, because LeBron is their target, he's their favorite, person to hitch their wagon to whenever they can. They took
Sheriff started it though, Mike.
Went on Twitter. Sheriff definitely started it. Sheriff started it. Absolutely. Go ahead, Vinny. I just want to give people a little more context. Go ahead.
Well, first off, the officer is still alive, from what I understand. So they're not even dead yet, right?
Oh,
so
okay,
reward for it's all good. A reward for a killing that ain't quite a killing. And do you know the police budget of the LAPD is something along the lines of $8 billion? So if anybody's got the money, the LAPD's got the money, and they don't need LeBron James's paltry salary, his paltry voice, and everything else, because they don't want to hear what he has to say any other time. And you know what LeBron does not do 9 times out of 10? Talk about things that happen in his own backyard. He didn't even talk about Tamir Rice when it happened in Cleveland, because clearly there were a lot of things in play, that he had to kind of stay away from and tread a little bit lightly. But just getting back to the LAPD, y'all can't handle y'all own business? If y'all got no problem shooting black folks unarmed and throwing a rock and hiding your hand, or daring black folks to do something about it, now y'all want to depend on the black folks to help y'all handle y'all situation? Handle your own business. Don't come to black folks when it's a problem. Like, isn't this like the crazy part of being black in America, where they don't want to hear from the poor black folks when something comes up. They don't want to hear from the rich and wealthy black folks when stuff comes up. But yet they feel compelled to challenge black folks as if we are responsible for situations and environment that they create. You know what I would say if I were LeBron? Let's wait for the facts. Can we get all the facts to come out first before we go condemning anybody? Yeah. Isn't that what they say every time there's a video of a black guy being choked out or shot or kneeled on and all the facts are there? How about we wait for the facts this time? Tell LeBron, wait for the facts this time.
Well, Vinny and Michael, that's my issue, with the false equivalency of the matter, because it's a clear attempt at the sheriff and by extension the right-wing news media to equate a criminal act. And thank you for catching me on that earlier, Vinny. I'm glad to know that the officers, survived the attack. That's obviously criminal activity. Nobody would condone that. Nobody would in any way, not be heartbroken or distraught over public servants being ambushed and attacked. Nobody's wishing any kind of violence on the police, despite the fact this is a conversation about state-sanctioned violence against black and brown bodies. That said, though, it's almost like their way of saying all lives matter. So, LeBron, if you're so outraged by police killings, shouldn't you be just as outraged when police are attacked? It's like, no, that one does not equate to the other, Michael Hawley.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, look. That's why I was saying I wanted to just to bring it up and to point out the absurdity of it, which you guys have done a really good job of.
So, yeah, and it's it's so ridiculous. So LeBron James, who is in Orlando playing basketball, who has absolutely nothing to do with anything that's going on in this situation, his name gets pulled out of the sky,
right,
for no apparent reason. And I don't know all the details of the case. I don't know if the shooter first of all, again, the police officers did not die. They were shot. Not saying that it was right, but they didn't die. So just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that the officers were not killed.
Right.
Still something that should not have happened. Of course, nobody, it's a crime. Just like
Right.
when we are shot by them, it's a crime.
Right.
But for some reason, it needs over explanation when we're shot by them for people to identify it as a crime.
Right.
And that is the issue. And so they talked about false equivalencies, and it was, it's just that trying to make this the same as if, and I still don't understand like what the point was. So they're raising money
of calling out LeBron.
Right.
I get it. It doesn't make sense, but I get why he did it, because LeBron has been very vocal. He is someone, a Black person, a Black man that has a platform and has been speaking against police violence. And that's the thing, is like, it's state sanctioned violence, right? And the thing is, what makes the difference between like a civilian shooting someone, and someone in law enforcement shooting someone, like, you have a job. This is your job, to protect and serve, right? That's what you supposedly, are out there to do. And when we don't get justice for someone killing us, like, that's what makes the difference. It's not like, when this person gets found, because most likely they will be found quickly, right? They will be punished. That doesn't happen when it is us, when they're protected by this whole, by their whole blue code,
blue code of silence.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
like, I completely agree with you. Now, I understand why they did it. I'm saying, what is his point? Can he articulate a point, being the sheriff, of pulling LeBron James's name out of a hat? Like, can't prove a point. Like, why should he donate money? Based on what factor? Based on what need? Based on what injustice? We have to protest just to get an indictment. We're not even talking about an arrest. We're not even talking about a prosecution. We're talking about an indictment, just for someone to say that the information or that a crime may have been committed, by this person. Like, indictment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that's the whole point. And then, just speaking about like money, how dare you even, it's not even like he asked him to just, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because it was very condescending. I think, the way that he approached the situation, he meant to be, like, well, since all these lives matter, then how about you, but look at the fact that, this is the budget of what the city of Los Angeles spends on policing compared to everywhere else. So police is highlighted in the dark blue, right? This is almost $2 billion, right? Compared to all of these other things, right? And then there was even another breakdown, like, I mean, there are so many different things. All of these, like, general services gets the least amount. And these are things that affect the people in the city, like benefits for people in the city and everything. Then they even have a breakdown even further on the police department, within the police department, what they're spending on. And so above, look at this, the blue highlighted part. This is the most money that's spent within the police department, right? Within that almost $2 billion budget. It's on field patrol. And you better believe, like, this is all, it says it includes the salaries, equipment, and other expenses. And we already know, like, with all of these ridiculous, weapons and all this stuff that they have, unnecessary to wage war against people, like civilians, unarmed civilians most of the time, right? Like, you would think that we are really, well, I think we are, like, in a war zone, honestly. And like I talked about before, just my experience, like, just seeing this growing up there, and just seeing how police interact with people. It's just, I don't know, it's very hostile. It's very, like, they want to just poke at people, just probe them and get them to react so that they can put them into the system. We already know what the system does. You know, we already know what you know, the purpose of it. Us uncovering the truth about this whole so-called justice system, and we know that it's just an extension of enslavement, right? We know that it didn't just end. They still want their free labor. They still want to shovel it into, you know, into the system. And, you know, it's just crazy though. Like, the police is definitely not just there to protect and serve. They definitely are there with a motive.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just ridiculous, man. Like, so now you want LeBron James to be political.
Right.
So when he's talking on behalf of us, it's shut up and dribble, and we want to keep politics out of sports.
Exactly.
Now, see, they can't even keep their argument straight. This is how you know when someone doesn't have any logic base to their argument.
Exactly.
Like when you get into a disagreement with somebody and they keep shifting the point, when they move off their original point and they can't even stick to one position.
Right.
Okay, we're talking about, like, there was one of my favorite books is called From Superman to Man, and in it he's there's this train porter, and he's an intelligent black man, well-traveled, well-versed, well-read, and he is in a conversation, baited into a conversation about race with this white senator from, I think, from Kentucky or somewhere like that, or Arkansas. And they start the conversation off where the white guy is trying to prove the point that black people are inferior intellectually. And then when the guy, Porter, reads fact-based, you know, history on the intelligence and the things that black people did from Africa all the way to intelligence represented here in the United States, his the senators, the racist senators, comeback was, well, you know, there's a distinct, you know, foul smell that comes from, you know, people of African descent. So it went from we are inferior in intelligence, we are inferior athletically. When we prove that to be false, now you go to personal attacks on nonsense. Now you're just trying, because what you're trying to do now is take me off of my articulate, logical points and get me insulted. So now that you do a personal shot, I do a personal shot. Now you've taken me down to your level of rolling around in the mud. And now from a distance, nobody can see who the fool is, because now we're both muddy.
Engaging
I am logically talking to you, and then you dig yourself down into the mud, and I just, you know, keep moving past you. Then everybody from a distance and close up can see who the crazy person was, who had the lack of an argument. And this is what happens when we get into these realms, when you start watching these ultra right-winged news channels. They start off trying to be logical, and when their logic or illogical argument gets factually dethroned, then they start throwing mud pies at people. And it's like, and they just want to hit one person who's gonna dip down to their level, and they're gonna spotlight that one. They're not gonna ignore, they're not going to put the spotlight on the 300 people who didn't respond to them, but the one person who did get caught lacking, who did respond. Like, LeBron's best bet in this situation is to focus right now on the fact that he's in Orlando. And honestly, I'm glad it's the playoffs, because LeBron don't even watch TV or be on social media in the playoffs.
Yeah, well, that's good.
He turns off all his stuff.
I was like, please, LeBron, don't even respond. I was like, that doesn't even deserve a response. It was such a ridiculous request.
Ridiculous. They have more money, like we just showed. The police department isn't lacking on any money. The officers are not killed, and this person will be found and will be prosecuted and prosecuted.
Right.
And I don't know if the individual was black, white. That's
what I'm saying. They are jumping to they're jumping to conclusions on that part. Even I'm sure, because this same argument, this same like challenge will come from people if they find out, like, if the person happens to be black or Hispanic or whatever, you know, like, they wanted to be somebody, ethnic, to be, to be held accountable for all of the violence against police officers, which is not nearly as much as it is, with people being attacked by the police and not, getting justice.
Right.
So it's like, this is just such a, false equivalence. It's a ridiculous request. It makes no sense.
Which moves us into our next point. Breonna Taylor's murderers still have not been arrested. They're still trying to justify it. And her family just received, what was it, like $12 million?
Yeah, I believe they said a $12 million settlement.
And people are calling it justly hush money. They want her family to receive this money and then start to encourage us as the Black people in the communities that are protesting and continuously, seeking justice to be quiet, to stop protesting, to stop calling for the justice that needs to be served. First of all, I implore her family to take whatever they can get. $12 million isn't going to replace that young woman's life.
Exactly.
Isn't going to replace the
trauma, everything that
that they're going through right now. So get the money, but what they don't understand is we weren't doing this on behalf of Breonna Taylor's family.
Right, exactly.
I didn't even know that those people existed.
Right.
I didn't know Breonna Taylor, right? I don't know her family makeup. I didn't know if she, was just a solo person living out in the world, and if she had the boyfriend who was in the house. But I don't know what's going on with her family life. So we weren't doing this solely on the basis of her family members. We're doing this because a wrong has been committed. And Breonna Taylor is my sister. She's my cousin. She's my auntie. She's my niece. She's my whatever. She's my friend, right? I am personally affronted. I take that as an attack on all of us as Black people. So her family receiving that money, we congratulate and clap for them. They need that type of compensation, which still doesn't come close to solving their pain right now, to comforting their grief. But understand this, white America, this isn't about individual families. This is about us as a people coming together and saying, no longer are we going to just sit aside, and we're not going to forget.
Right.
We're not going to stop saying her name, Breonna Taylor. We're not going to stop asking for justice. We're going to demand justice. We want those people arrested. We want them fired. We want them prosecuted. We want them in prison.
And I'm sure this is hush money, pretty much, like you said, like it's been stated, but they love to create this thing, where they want to talk about the person who we're, who's the hashtag is named after, or any signs, or whatever the person is who's been attacked or been been done wrong. They want to make it always about the person, like, as an individual, as if we're not talking about this as a whole problem that we've been dealing with. Like, they're only one more victim of this system, of this whole, of the whole problem. And just like, when they're able to do that, like, as individuals, and I think it's also important to notice, to note, like, not focusing so much on what the family statements are, because sometimes they disappoint us, and like, they'll make some crazy statement,
like Botham John's brother.
Yeah, exactly. Doing all this early forgiving and all kind of stuff like that. And it's like, well, that's not the whole point of, we're not even talking about you. They're another victim of the system and of this whole problem. But let's not forget that, we are trying to tear down this whole, this whole situation. It's not just one person. And when they like to make it about the individual, it's easy for them to attack who that person was. They attack their character, or who they may have. If they can't find anything on them, like they did with Breonna, they try to go after people who they've been associated with, right? And so they just constantly try to dig in and just just overtake the whole situation by destroying the character of the person. Yep. It's sad. It's really disgusting.
So they'll find a family member. I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but something happened with Trayvon Martin's brother, and they tried to bring that up years later. It was like, what does that have to do?
Right. That's still not justifying anything.
What is happening? Like, they just love saying anything, and it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to be something to say. They know their audience, and they know they can get people off the subject. And we will not.
Exactly. It's meant to derail off the main topic.
Yeah. And so it's just, we will not be silenced. And, I don't know how this settlement came to, or if, the family had lawyers, or who was sued. I don't know all the details, because I honestly don't care about those funds. The family should get that money. And those officers, I don't even like calling them, the murderers should be arrested.
Exactly.
Like, they don't even deserve the title of police officer. That's a position of respect. That's the thing. Like, if you are a respectable police officer, if you actually respect the police, then you should be the main people.
Okay, I think you froze up real quick. But yeah, I mean, it's completely ridiculous. This whole situation. Let's see if we can get him back. It's completely ridiculous. Like, it's not at all the same thing, the same type of situation. We don't get justice when it is when we are killed, or done wrong. So we just need to, I think, for the people, we all need to just remain focused on it and not think that, because this is clearly hush money that they've done, that they've given their family. And like we said, it's not going to bring Breonna back. It's not really going to, bring peace to the whole situation. It's not a solution. And I'm sure they just wanted people to just, to just quiet down, because people are disrupting the system. They're disrupting that whole city. There are people still there protesting every day. They're there day and night. People, they're not letting up. So this is the whole point of just trying to hush everyone up. Okay, here you go. But yeah, so what do you guys think? If anyone there chiming in on the situation, how do you feel about this hush money that was given to? Do you think that is hush money that was given to Breonna's family? Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah, welcome back.
Backed out on me. Yeah.
Okay.
So
mid sentence, but okay, pick it up.
Right. So what I was saying was, we're not here only for the family. We're here on behalf of Black people, and we won't be silenced. Just like we mentioned Botham Jean's brother, Botham Jean, who people may forget was pretty much a very similar, eerily similar situation to Breonna Taylor's case, where he was killed in his own house by a police officer. And we saw her get arrested and just be proven not guilty. The jury said not guilty. So we've seen this go all the way down to the point, and the person, not only was she not guilty, no, she was sentenced, but the family said,
Oh yeah,
The
they
family
forgave
said, the family forgave her. The brother was saying that, he didn't want her to go to jail.
her.
And
Right.
then the judge came off the judge stand and was stroking the woman's hair as she sobbed as she got sentenced to prison time. A black judge. So
Well, yeah, she was hugging her, and it was other people because the judge came down and hugged her. And did she give her a Bible? Was that the same judge? And
right,
then
gave her a Bible.
and then it was the other
hair.
lady in the court who was who was stroking her hair. It
This
was
is
just like,
ridiculousness.
man.
So we've seen this narrative play out in a ridiculous way.
Right.
And we have to do better for ourselves. We got to stand up for ourselves. It's not like this forgiveness narrative. This is not who we've always been. Like, we have always resisted. This is why we keep doing. This is why ASAP exists, to let us know, because we have been miseducated. We have been taught very successfully since integration that our goal is not for a Black freedom struggle, but our goal is to be acceptable to white people, to get them to like us, to accommodate to them. They only think this way because we haven't shown ourselves to be worthy. What? Based on what? Worthy to who? For what reason? You trying to prove your worth to them is already buying into white supremacy. Is already buying to an inferiority narrative.
I was just about to say that because I was telling you, I was having a conversation with a friend who grew up in the 60s and everything. And we were just on this whole topic of, just even relating today's events to, yesterday's. And it's just amazing how we've gotten to the point. And I think, this existed a while ago too, just this whole idea of like, respectability in us. How is it that we are constantly trying to either defend people who are attacking us or against us? Why are we always the ones to have to apologize to and this is the thing, like with the police, with the person shooting the police officers, of course we're human beings. We don't want anyone to be like murdered or or harmed in any kind of way like that. It's not like we're just monsters. And even as a result of all of the violence against us, we're still not those heartless people, right? We'll still be the ones, which it showed you in the case with the brother and his family and the judge and everybody, apologizing and showing all of that sympathy and everything for the woman who murdered their family member, right?
Let me be murdered and my brother say something like that. I'm haunting my brother for the rest of his life.
You have permission. Anybody that knows me, you have permission to just raise all kind of I'm telling, like, I mean, I think it's ridiculous, myself, but other people, I've listened to people's perspectives on it. And like the judge gave her response talking about how she felt that as a Christian woman that was her duty, and all this and that. And I heard like other people explaining how well, they just felt like it was the right thing to do, to just show compassion even when that wasn't shown to them. And I mean, that's fine, everybody can have their own perspective, their own views of the situation, but this is not the time. This is not the fight. It's not only about you, right? It's not only about these single families, that these tragedies are happening to, but it's a larger message. And so when we are like so quick to be apologetic, we have to understand like just what that brings with it. We can't just
remember what we talked about in the Maroon societies, in the Quilombos, in the Palenque. It's not about individualism. They were able to survive by being a collective, by being a collective community, understanding that when one person is a weak link, it breaks the entire chain. So we, as a collective, have to set the agenda, have to understand that, yes, We want that family to get whatever is due to them for their loss. But at the same time, it does not impact or halt what we are fighting for and what we're calling for. And we hope that that family continues to push and they don't allow themselves to be silenced. And to be honest with you, I haven't heard, and maybe I missed the articles, but I haven't heard much noise from Breonna Taylor's family in the first place. So hushing them, again, I don't really think that these people understand that hushing them is not going to hush the lot of us.
Right. I think that
even if it did work,
people been protesting day and night, in that city. Is Kentucky, right? Isn't it Kentucky?
I believe so.
Okay,
So many of these things happen.
So they want to make it like, oh, well, we gave them a solution. We solved the problem, but we haven't heard anything about these officers, these murderers, right? Still getting the justice that they deserve. We don't.
At large,
we haven't
at
gotten
home.
that.
Ben, just think about this. They are able to go home to the comforts of their homes with their families, sleep every night, and they probably not even losing sleep over what they've done.
They're
just
not
sleeping, just like the murderers of Ahmaud Arbery for months were able to go home. No APB, no manhunt, no nothing. And trust me, there's a manhunt out on this guy who shot those two officers.
You already know.
But there's no manhunt out on the killers of Breonna Taylor. No manhunt over the killers of Ahmaud Arbery. No manhunt over the killers of George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks. They have subsequently, depending on the city that they're in, some amount of a little bit of justice has been enacted in some of these cases, but in the majority of these cases, dating all the way back to Sean Bell and Trayvon Martin, and we're talking about the modern, postmodern cases, right, where we have video proof, where we have the evidence, and we saw officers walk away. Eric Garner's officers that killed him, they walked away. Freddie Gray's murderers walked away. Mike Brown's murderers walked away. Like Tamir Rice's murderers walked away, and I had
got
to stop
another
myself.
job. They had to get. They got another job, and that's the thing. Also, I was listening to also something about the sheriff that called out LeBron James, and he himself has rehired people, who have murdered people, unjustly, and rehired them, gave them a job, right? So I don't want to hear it. Like it's ridiculous. But I hope that it doesn't. I hope that it doesn't, like, actually silence some people, because some people do. I think they did it to show that, okay, well, we did something about it. It's definitely not enough. We need to see a change. We need to see, real justice, not just, money. Because I'm sure they were just able to just flick those coins to them.
On this platform, you can be sure that we won't be silenced. And matter of fact, I'm going even harder. It's been Breonna Taylor's name has been on every episode since I put it up. It's always scrolling at the bottom of the screen twice. It's in the beginning of the scroll and it's at the end. And then I also have another banner up. And we're going to continue to push harder because of the silence that they're trying to, demand, really. So we demand justice for Breonna Taylor. We're not going to stop saying her name. We're not going to forget her. We're not going to forget the story. And we're going to push this hard on Elijah McClain. We're going to push this hard on to make sure that the murderers of George Floyd actually get prosecuted. Right? Because that's still not over. Just because we're not talking about it, Rayshard Brooks's case is not over. Yes, they were fired. Some of them were arrested. It's not over until we get prosecution, until I see a sentencing. Right. And I don't want no 5-year sentencing with 2 years of optional parole either. That's not enough. So, it's just justice needs to be served. And you brought up Christianity, right? And I love when a plan comes together because our highlight reel, it goes down that path, right? And so today we're talking about David Walker. And David Walker was a man, a black man, born free.
Yeah.
Born free abolitionist. I love this.
Okay.
I love it because this show is about champions. This show is about highlighting champions. And if you're born free, you don't have to be an abolitionist because you don't have to care about what's going on with other people, even if they look like you. We know plenty black people today that don't care about what's going on with us. They are making their money and they're making their bones, you know, collecting checks from Fox News and other right-wing media sources, Candace Owens, who will go out of their way.
I can't even say her name. I can't stand this child.
They will go out of their way to just add wood to a ridiculous fire, right?
Right.
But
and it can put people's lives in danger too.
Exactly.
It doesn't even involve you.
Reality
imagine back then. Yeah, imagine back then being, you know, when slavery was going on, and you as a free black person are speaking up on behalf of enslaved people. You know, like that it did put his life in danger.
And fiercely speaking on behalf of black people, not coattailing. And David Walker identified as a Christian. And we're going to get a little bit more into that once we dig a little deeper. But you tell the people, like, what did you learn about David Walker? When did you learn about David Walker?
Of course, during my college years, and most
as an adult,
because as an adult, because I was studying African American studies, and you know, otherwise I'd never, you know, I don't think I would have ever.
So you're telling me
been taught
that you could have possibly gone throughout your entire education, higher education, even the like, and have never come across the name David Walker. That means anything significant to black people.
That is exactly what I'm saying. And I think it was because it was like a required reading too, right? Like, so I had to read, you know, and find out about him. But I do know he was an abolitionist, as you stated before, born a free man. His mother was a free person. So back at that time, you know, his father was enslaved, but his mother was a free woman. And so you took after whatever your mother was. So that's how he was born a free person. But again, he was a writer, an abolitionist. And so he used to write a publication. One of the first, I was reading the first Black-owned publication, the Freedom's Journal, I believe it was called. But yeah, I know. So he was loud, like you say, he was loud and bold about it, right? Like he wasn't just very passive, because a lot of times when we hear there were a lot of abolitionists, right? It wasn't just black people. A lot of us, we hear like Frederick Douglass, we think of Frederick Douglass, but then you also hear about a lot of non-black, you know, or white abolitionists, and some of them were very passive. You have someone like what's his name, John Brown, right? John Brown.
John Brown didn't play no games though.
I'm telling you, he didn't play games. Like he was one of the rare cases, like, of a non-black abolitionist who was like, you know, let's go after him. Like he had a plan to go, you know, like, let's go steal the guns and y'all go shoot him up, you know. But that was a rare case for a white abolitionist, you know, to be so bold about it. But so a lot of them were kind of passive and like, okay, let's slowly break down the system of slavery. Let's do it this respectable way and stuff. And so David Walker was one of those. He was bold about it. He was, you know, very vocal, and calling out the Christians, you know, so-called the white Christians,
calling out their contradictions,
calling them out. Like, this is what you believe in, right? And you talking about every man is equal, right? So, you know, this is a complete contradiction. And so, but yeah, that's what I pretty much learned that about him. He was just very bold, but he was also saying, okay, we can do this peacefully, but if we have to, we can respond violently as well. Like by any means necessary, we need to end the system of slavery.
So David Walker is most notably, by those who have been fortunate enough to be educated on him, for David Walker's appeal in 4 articles. You usually hear David Walker's name as David Walker's appeal, right? Like it's usually not even like David Walker the man. It's just David Walker's appeal. And you know, an appeal in 4 articles, and he wrote this, and he references Thomas Jefferson, and so it's called an appeal, right? Which usually is like a reasonable, trying to reason with someone and trying to get them to gain understanding of your points. Like you're appealing to their senses. And sometimes an appeal, even the word can be seen as passive, but this appeal was anything but that. It was really a calling out, to be called David Walker's call out of contradictory on, you know, U.S. government. And so he starts out with talking about humanity and debunking the fact of, or debunking the thought of African inferiority. He says, okay, if that's the case, then how do you explain Hannibal, who was, you know, a general in Carthage and brought the Romans to their knees? How do you explain Ethiopia? How do you explain Egypt? How do you explain the pyramids and the technology? And how do you explain the fact that the Europeans had to come to Egypt and Ethiopia to learn any of the things that they took back with them to build up their societies? So first of all, I just want to take a note. So this is 1830. And David Walker is well versed in ancient Egyptian and Ethiopian history. He's well versed in Carthaginian history, which is present day Tunisia, just in case people don't know where Carthage was, which is Africa.
In
Africa.
Africa.
There's no such thing as North Africa. It's just Africa. All of these people were black. Okay, let's get that out of the way. And David Walker knew that Hannibal was black. I looked up Hannibal because I wanted to talk about Hannibal as one of our highlights. So I was just happened to be looking up Hannibal even before I read David Walker's appeal again and realized that he referenced Hannibal. And I couldn't find any black images of Hannibal. There was one video game. There was a video game that came out a couple of years ago, and it had Hannibal and Shaka Zulu in it, and had both of them as black. So I was like, okay, that's cool. But it was David Walker knew Hannibal was black, which means that over time in 1830, white people hadn't published the textbooks or rewrote enough of the history to deny what was already. They weren't able to edit it just yet. So whatever David Walker's source of information was, gave him the real. That was the raw image. My question is, and I marvel at how much education they were able to attain. Like, where was he getting this information? Whoever his teachers were, I applaud them like highly, because this is 1830. Where was this information? It wasn't an internet, right? So that was just dope. The fact that he understood that his African ancestry and holding on to the same thing that we do here, holding on to the greatness and understanding that we are building upon the shoulders of people who did great things to encourage us to know where we belong, that we belong on equal footing, right, with any other human. And this inferiority talk is ridiculousness. And then the first, so that's not even the first appeal, right? The first appeal is that's just the introduction when he talks about that. Then he starts to talk about The first appeal is, so that's the preamble. So he talks about the condition of slavery, right? And he talks about enslavement in other parts of the world because they tried to dilute, because he was an abolitionist, he was in meetings with other people trying to undercut the brutality of enslavement, chattel enslavement in the US. And being able to prove that chattel enslavement, especially that of the United States, was so much more brutal than those that existed in the old world. He talked about how the Egyptians, or the people of Kemet, gave the Hebrews land. The Hebrews came there as welcome people first. You know, if you go off the story from the Bible, which is the only historical context that I know of Hebrews being enslaved in Kemet. So they were given land, and then, you know, and they were still at all times treated as people.
Right.
At no time were they animals or anything like that. But you go ahead, and then I'll go on to the next appeals, and I'll break down that Christianity piece in a minute. Because
go ahead and finish it out.
Okay.
Go ahead,
so the second appeal is to the ignorance, right? So it goes back to the young lady, the judge. It goes back to Botham Jean's brother, right? So in the ignorance, he's talking to Black people. He's talking to Black people who have lost sight, who are arguing with him during this time period on the basis that we need to prove ourselves to white people. Right. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to appeal in this way. We need to present in this way to be acceptable. And he's telling them, no, we come from greatness. We don't need to prove anything to them. We need to know who we are as people of African descent and lean only on that, and lean only on the fact that we are human. They came to us to learn. We knowing more about ourselves will give us the encouragement, the empowerment to understand that this is not correct what's happening to us. And we won't just sit by and say that maybe, you know, maybe they have a point, or maybe they're right about this. No, they're lying about it all. And our ignorance is holding us back from unifying. He talked about Hannibal and the fact that Hannibal would not have lost his battle against the Romans. He pushed the Romans all the way back to their wall and lost. And he said, had the Carthaginians actually unified and aided Hannibal in his fight, then he would have easily won that battle, because he was the superior strategist and the better warrior. But he didn't have his people unified as a collective behind him, supporting him.
Right.
And he was telling us as Black people in 1830 the same thing, that we need to unify. We need to be behind this, because if we are not, we will fail.
Exactly. He understood like the importance of having that background knowledge, like having, like you said, having the inspiration from that, from knowing that you came from something greater, that we have been, you know, in a position to where we can rule ourselves, to where, you know, this is an irregular situation here. Like, this is not something that's normal. It's not something that should happen to us. So that's an interesting perspective that you gave, and I agree. Like, or, you know, just thinking about who taught him, where did he get this information? And, you know, of course, we know that you know, we had scholars and stuff. Of course, we don't hear too many about Black scholars, you know, and writings and readings and things that they contributed to. So it was I'm sure that there was a lot of information out there, but it's amazing that he was able to get this information and relate it, you know, like put that in there, you know, to spread that knowledge, which is basically what I consider us to be doing, is giving you history, right? Showing you these people, that these situations, these people existed, and there is something outside of, you know, beyond what we're experiencing now.
Right.
And that is something to fight for.
Yeah. And so the first appeal was against enslavement. Second appeal is to our ignorance. The third appeal is to Christianity. So those so-called believers in Jesus Christ who can also logically justify in their mind the brutality against other human beings, which is so antithetical to the message of Jesus Christ, right? So if you're going to call yourself a Christian, like you're contradicting yourself from the beginning. And he lights into Thomas Jefferson, right? Because Thomas Jefferson, the forefather who he's the author of the Declaration of Independence. Am I right?
Right.
The one who said that all men are created equal. He said this, but he also is known for saying that the African is just, you know, head and shoulders inferior to the white man. Now, how can you say both of those things out of one mouth? How do both of those thoughts come out of one brain? All men are created equal. The African is inferior to white men. Huh? So he, you know, and I'm not spoiling the appeal, the articles. I want you guys to go read it word for word for yourselves so you can know just how deep and how far he goes. I'm just giving you a summary. I'm giving you the cliff notes, right? I'm giving you the main points of what he was talking about. But he tears into Christianity, religion, and this aspect of forgiveness of being done wrong. And he uses specific verses from the Bible. So if you identify as a Christian, you have to, I'm not using my logic, I'm using your logic that you've already accepted against you. So your cognitive dissonance is on you. Right? Like at this point, you're the one who has to be in battle with yourself and your own acceptance of ideas and what you have proclaimed to be. If you are a Christian and you believe in this mercy and this grace and this forgiveness and this love preached by, you know, the Jesus Christ that you believe, how could you possibly do any of these things that you're doing to Black people? It's impossible. You are a hypocrite. The fourth appeal is the consequence of the colonizing plan. And he talks about, you know, colonization and what and just the mindset of a colonizer and how there's no justice or nothing about colonizing another, you know, people is just. Those people were already there. You didn't discover anything. You didn't build anything. You have torn down what was there and built up something else to benefit you. But I encourage all of you
and thriving. Yeah.
I encourage everybody listening to this right now. Go read David Walker's appeal. Know about David Walker. Know the type of person that he was. When we talk about champions, that's what we're talking about. People who are going out of their way, putting their lives at risk. Like he's talking boldly to people. Like he's talking cash to Thomas Jefferson, to the legacy. And this is 1830. America, the Constitution is what, 1776. This is maybe what, 50, 60 years from that point. So, you know, it's not that far from the nation, you know, from the inception of this country. The country is pretty young at this point. It's a baby at this point. It's still developing, and he's tearing right into one of their forefathers. And yeah, I say there intentionally. I hold citizenship from the United States of America based on the 14th Amendment. That is all. That is all. It is not
I'm
a part of
good.
my identity.
Right.
It is a tool. My citizenship is a tool, and I use it as a tool. It does not identify me. Right.
Right.
So their forefather, David Walker, tore into them. My forefather, David Walker, tore into America's forefather, Thomas Jefferson, for being a buffoon, a contradictory buffoon. And that's pretty much how I sum that up. You sum it up for yourself when you read it. Please read it. I'm going to put, like, I'm reading it out of this book. It's called Classical Black Nationalism. Classical Black Nationalism. And it goes from the American Revolution to articles from Marcus Garvey, right? So it shows you that Black nationalism didn't start with Garvey. It predated him. There were Back to Africa movements before Garvey. There were people calling for nationalism on behalf of Africans and African born and African rooted people, no matter where we were, to come together in solidarity and identify based on that commonality to do so much good work. And we are, as African Unity Initiative, as ASAP, as so many other entities that we introduced through this platform, are continuing on that legacy. But the legacy is one that is old. We have been in this fight for a long time. Right. And it's not going to end.
Right. It's an ongoing thing.
Like,
and just like you,
that's what we want to continue to push. Go ahead.
Yeah, just like you point out a lot of times, even like when we're talking about this struggle, it's like you said, it's been an ongoing struggle. A lot of us get frustrated. I feel like, especially in a microwave society, everything is quick and, overnight, and we expect fast results. Otherwise, it didn't work. We got to find another way. We are pointing out the fact that this has been an ongoing thing, and we can still use other tactics, right? Other strategies that were used in the past, and we can build up on those things, right? Some plans can use a little modernizing. I guess, we can fit it to the times that we're in now with the resources that we have, but we should never think that, we have to start from square one when there have already been people and events, and things like that to push us forward. We don't have to start from scratch. We can take after people like David Walker. He addressed us, he addressed them, he addressed, this whole situation and how we can all be a part of it. And I think that's something we need to just really consider is, just always think about how you can be contributing to it. Because like you like to mention, even when we get to an ideal place, right, to something better than this, you have to keep maintaining that. You have to work to maintain that. It's not like we're gonna, reach the hilltop and then that's it. No, it's gonna take. It's gonna be work, right? It's not gonna be, And one thing we also have to keep in mind is like the enemy is gonna keep working. We talk about like even working like politically, like being involved politically. We can get certain laws and things in place. You better believe, just like there always is, anytime we get we take a step forward, there are going to be several steps that, made by our opponents, people who want to keep us behind. They're always working. They're never, they haven't stopped yet. Like, if you think that like after we ended, after slavery was abolished to now, how are we still the same people, right? In basically the same situation. We're still not free. They are continuously working and putting another plan, into play. When we get another foot up, from this current situation now, if we so-called overcome, the situation with police brutality, like we were talking about before, you better believe it's going to be something else that's going to take the place of it. So we have to continue. We have to always be working. It's not going to be ended.
Yep. And that's the thing that is important for us to say this now, even before we get to that place. So that mentality is already built into whatever it is that we're building into this movement, because that is, I keep going back. I can't stop. Like, I don't want to call it a recurring nightmare, but like the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Bill, like I see my grandmother's generation like taking a deep sigh, which was so necessary, but feeling like, okay, it's over. And it wasn't.
Right.
And
at all.
not to
though, like, it's crazy.
And not to say that we haven't made any advancements, but I don't think that had we kept that fight, because think about the advancements that we have made. So from the time of David Walker, him writing that appeal was like life-threatening. Like, it was dangerous, to the fact that I keep saying this, us doing this is no longer outright immediate dangerous, right? Our lives aren't being threatened based on us giving this information out.
Right.
Had it been 50 years ago, we would be on pirate radio in a basement somewhere trying to hijack a signal just to be heard. And we would be dangerous. We would be considered an immediate threat. I want you guys to consider this. J. Edgar Hoover, the person who founded the FBI, considered Marcus Garvey a bigger threat to American society than Al Capone. Al Capone, a mass murderer, a gangster, like a known murderer, drug dealer, number runner, was considered less of a threat to U.S. society than Marcus Garvey, who never did anything violent, to my knowledge.
Right. I've never heard anything.
Nothing. But he was on the most wanted list for the FBI from the inception of the FBI.
Imagine that. Imagine that.
From the time this Bureau of Investigation was formed, Marcus Garvey was on their hit list. So we're talking about us being able to freely give this information. Don't take it for granted. This is the time to jump on, because now it's a little bit safer. So we have made advancements. We don't want to say that we've not gotten anywhere. Yes, we've advanced. The baton has been passed from generation to generation in this long relay race, right? But if we have to continue to keep the next 5 generations in mind.
Right. Exactly. That's the thing.
Never stop the fight.
Right. We always have to be thinking about how can we build onto the next generation, and the struggle that they will continue to carry, right? We just have to pass the torch to them, because we are carrying it now, from people who came before us. They were carrying it from someone who carried it before them. And it's not going to be, we can't think so selfishly. I think the culture that we are in now is just, especially when we start to take on the culture and, the mentality of our oppressors, they have a very selfish way of thinking, right? They don't care about, even when you think about like global warming and how that's such a huge issue right now, and they're not taking it seriously. They don't care who's living on this planet after them. We have to think more holistically, like this is who we are. We do tend to be more compassionate, about, the world and other people around us. And so don't let their mentality and their habits, like, just don't let that become your narrative, because we just have to consider everybody, especially your children. If we're working, and we want to provide everything for our children, I think we should all be working to better the lives of our children. You don't want your child to start from square one just because you were raised, without this and that, and without this opportunity, without these, necessary things that you need, to live and to flourish. You want your children to be off on a better foot, so they don't have to focus on the struggle so much as you did. Now they can be freer you know, and their minds are clear. They don't have to worry about, just say, for instance, you built a house or you bought a house, right? When your child is old enough and you're gone, you can leave that house to your child. Now your child doesn't have to worry about, well, where would I stay? Because if you're worried about where you're going to live, then you have to take focus on off of other things that you need to do. So that's the whole point of wanting to build on top of, you know, and build for your, you know, your legacy. You don't want them to struggle. So we have to think about our future generations. Blackness is not going to end with us. When we die, people still going to be Black, right? We still making babies. People are still being, you know, born and raised in this world. And better believe, if we drop the ball, they will be suffering, you know, just as much, maybe even more, because like I said, the enemy will continue to work. A system will be more complicated, you know, to get through. So we all have to do our part. We cannot,
And
and
here's the other side of that, right? Sometimes we don't prepare the children because we have been so traumatized by the struggle that we don't want to put them through that. But what you're doing is you're setting them up for failure because they don't know what to expect. So when you come from it from that angle, sometimes it's not even that they want the children to go through what they went through. They want to preserve them from knowing. Right. But now you are setting them up to be unprepared when the struggle happens. And now they're unfamiliar with it and they don't know how to deal with it. And now they are mentally unprepared. They are, you know, culturally unprepared. They don't know how to deal. And so we understand, like, coming
when they
coming from this, from a compassionate standpoint, understanding, because I always think about Black Wall Street all the time, right? Since I learned about it, I think about the fact that the children who were, you know, or the parents of children when that happened, who survived, and the children who were raised up in the aftermath of that. And what I heard and what I read is that people didn't want to talk about it. Right. People didn't want to talk about what happened. They didn't want to talk about the good. They didn't want to talk about the success of it. They didn't want to talk about it at all. And so what happens is you don't encourage your children to go out and live and dream their biggest dream, because you want, no, just keep yourself low. Don't shake, don't rattle the system. Just because now you're not trying to survive. You're not trying to live. You're just trying to survive. Right. Is only you're just stuck in survival mode, but you're not thriving. Exactly. You're not even pushing the next generation. You're trying to cover them so much and baby them so much that you're coddling them, you're enabling them, like I talked about, that love spectrum. Now you're trying to protect so much and hold on to so tight that you don't prepare them for what's coming, because you're not always going to be here. So when you leave, whether that be through death or otherwise, when they're out on their own, you can't be with them every second. When they face something and they're not ready for it, now it's your fault. Exactly. That's so it's like like having a cast on, right? Eventually, if I broke my arm, I'm not going to keep that cast on. Yeah, it's support, right? It's supporting my arm. But if I leave it on too long, I'm not going to be building up the muscles and the bone in that arm. And so once it gets, just say, it gets cracked off, we break off the cast. Now, I'm going to be relying on this weak arm. I haven't given it time. I haven't given it the strength, right? The opportunity to rebuild strength. So I think I get it that, like you said, it's out of love. We want to protect our children, protect them from, this idea. I remember when I first went off to college and, meeting all these different people from different walks of life, right? And some people I was learning they had grown up with more knowledge of, our history and different things, things that I hadn't known. And then there are other people who, they shared that they didn't, their family, they basically didn't know anything about, like basically their
that racism still exists. Like, it's so many people, even that I keep in touch with now, and I'm grateful to see their growth. Like, I'm glad that they have, they're learning, but it took like current events, right? Not that any of this stuff is new, not that police brutality is new. It's not at all. We're just now capturing it, right? And sharing it across the world in real time. But this is a very old issue, but a lot of people didn't know that this stuff was actually an ongoing problem. They didn't understand that this is a struggle that's been lasting way beyond, the years that we've been alive, even before our ancestors were brought from the shores of Africa here. It's been a continuous struggle, from way back then. And again, we spoke about, I think yesterday, that our experience is not unique, right? You have other people in the diaspora, just not a few islands away of, on another coast somewhere, on another continent, who have their history has lasted just as long as ours, maybe a little bit longer or a little bit less, right? And they've had these same experiences. And so if we unify, right, if we understand each other's history, learn and understand each other's history, we see how similar our histories are and how similar we are as people. We come from the same people, right?
You know what's funny?
That's just so important.
That cast analogy that you just did is brilliant, because when you break your arm, let's say breaking your arm is the trauma of Black Wall Street getting torn down, right?
Right.
You need the cast. It would be foolish to not wear it, because you need time for the bone to heal.
Right.
So that cast is on there for protection. So yes, you need to have time to grieve and recollect yourself, but the cast isn't there just so for the arm to stay broken. It's giving the arm time to heal so that you don't move it in a wrong way as to prevent the healing that is naturally going to take place, because our bodies do that. Right. But if you have the cast on for too long, then it starts to undo the good that it was doing. If you don't have it on long enough, you don't give it enough time to do its job. So the same thing with us. Okay, we deal with trauma. We acknowledge it. We grieve. We process. We take the time to vent and get all of those things out. But if we spend too much time there, then the cast is no longer there protecting us, is enabling, and it's not doing it. We can't build up the strength. The bone is healed now.
Right.
And now it's time for us to move on to the next step. I think sometimes we get stuck in that cast stage. We get stuck in the cast mindset where, okay, yes, we acknowledge that the bone was broken. It needed time to heal. So we back off.
Right.
But now we keep the cast on too long. Now the arm, you know how your arm looks when it comes out of a cast. It's lost muscle. It's lost weight. It's lost melanin. It's lost everything. And so what was protecting it is now doing more harm. Because also, if you keep a cast on for too long, what's going to happen? Your skin is going to start to mildew and decay. And you're going to get sores and all this type of stuff. Because you need vitamin D from the sun to continue to nourish your body. So sometimes what seems like a good thing, if you lean onto it too much, it even can become bad. That's why they say too much of anything is bad. No matter what it is. Too much sunlight is bad. Now you're in a drought. Too much rain is bad. Now you're flooded. You need balance.
That's the whole point. So, right. Balance. We can find balance in everything, but we do, I think what is pushed in society, because people like to be comfortable too, right? And so change is uncomfortable sometimes. We have to challenge the systems that we're used to. A lot of us, we don't know. And I get it, right, all the time, right? But I think
every single time you change something is uncomfortable.
Exactly. The fear also of not knowing what's to come you know, and that's what we also have to be reminded of is a lot of the people, you know, in the past who we've highlighted, they didn't know what was to come of, you know, their challenges, what they were, you know, how they were challenging the system or challenging, you know, who, you know, whatever situation they were in. And so we have to just always stay encouraged, even when we don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But understand, think about it as a relay race, right? The next person has to keep running. You didn't win the race just because you ran your round and, you know, you made it, and you have to pass it on to the next person, pass the baton so they can continue to race, because it won't be a short, you know, journey. It won't be the last of it. Once we accomplish whatever it is that our generation is going to accomplish, the next generation will still have to be working, and the next, and then whoever after, they'll also be maintaining it, right? So it's not just an end goal, just one thing. So it's not going to be one solution either. We have so many different perspectives, different levels that you can participate in this whole freedom struggle. So hey.
Yep. Look, man, like I always say, it's a beautiful burden. It's a burden, but it's beautiful, especially if we all carry our piece. It becomes that much less heavier. It's not heavy if
Yeah, okay. So yeah, we lost him again. He'll come back in, but yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing struggle. We just have to make sure that we're all doing our part. It is a beautiful burden, as TJ likes to put it. I love this quote. I love this saying. I mean, a beautiful burden, because it's hard. It's going to be heavy, right? It's not going to be something that is just going to be a quick solution to. We have to just understand that, I mean, unfortunately, we've been put in this situation, but like, we don't like to use the word slave. We didn't have slaves as ancestors. There were people who were in this condition. They were in this situation of slavery, right? And so we have to think about it now. We're not just doomed. We just have to get through, you know, the struggles of today, and understand that there is something to look forward to. So, but it is beautiful, I think, because we get to see our, you know, resilience. We get to see our strength, and just the journey that we're taking of relearning our history, relearning who we are, and just all the beauty that goes along with that. So I completely agree. Someone said there's no growth in complacency. I absolutely agree. Yeah, we have to keep moving. We definitely have to keep moving. So here he is. So yeah, it's so many different roles to play in this whole movement. You know, everyone has it, whether you're a person who you're good at inspiring people, right? You might be a person that you're good at working, right? So we need a lot of workers, we need thinkers, we need leaders, and we need workers, right? Everyone doesn't have to play the same role. You don't have to be a Marcus Garvey, you don't have to be a Martin or Malcolm, right? Whatever your role is, and don't think that we only need one type of leader. Everyone has a role to play. So welcome back, brother.
Yeah. So I think the Hoovers might have been listening to me saying you're not, you know, a threat anymore. And they were like, oh, is that right? We're going to shut you down today. No, will not be silenced.
Yeah.
So back to what we were talking about, like,
the beautiful burden.
And I appreciate you holding it down while I'm struggling. But yeah, the beautiful burden must be carried by us all. And like, again, ASAP. It means as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
It also means African Social Activism Playbook, us giving literal, tangible activities that we can do to promote this Pan-Africanism. African Unity Initiative is about tangible Pan-Africanism. If you want to elevate a pitch, it's that. African Unity Initiative promotes tangible Pan-Africanism. Pan-Africanism you can do, something you can be involved in. You can connect to it. You can touch it. You can actually find communities of people that you want to know something about Africa. We have communities that you can actually talk to. You want to know what's going on in the Afro-Latino community? Well, we can show you our community in Peru, who also is connected to communities in Bolivia and Brazil and Colombia. And so we have that connection. You want to know more about Haiti? We have communities in Haiti. You want to know more about, anywhere in the Caribbean? We're building relationships. We're doing that. We're making it tangible, something that you can touch, something that you can do. So it's not just, oh man, this big theoretical concept. No.
Right.
It's real. It's attainable. It's something that we can do. So, we want you guys to stay tuned in. We appreciate the growth of the show. It's amazing. We're getting, people chiming in, and we love you guys' comments. We love your activity. And so that
from different countries and everything, different countries.
Right.
And cities.
So, and that's what we're talking about. The African diaspora is wherever we are, Africa is. That's my belief. That's how I look at the African unity. Is not every Black person on the planet going back and living on the continent. I want every Black person on the planet to go back and significantly spend time on the continent. But to live there is to not only it's not reasonable in space and resources, it's not reasonable to leave behind places that our ancestors have built.
Right.
We have contributed to the success of these places that we have been taken to. And now it is just as much ours as it is anyone else's. And so we take claim in that we put our flag wherever we are. So we are Africans no matter where on the planet we are. Africa is not a geographical location anymore. It's there.
Yeah.
So
absolutely,
we are African, and African Unity Initiative is about the entire diaspora. That's why we spell it with a K. So, I mean, we love you guys, and just like we always do, Michelee, let the people know where they can find you.
You can contact me if you want to just get in touch with me on my personal social media, Michelee the Maker. But I also have my website, my where I make my handmade goods, wearables. I just added some new things on the site at mishmashworld.com. You can also find me on my Instagram for the business at mishmashworld. Appreciate you for the support, brother.
Always. And if you need more information about African Unity Initiative as an organization, you can visit us at africanunity.us. You can become a supporter. You can donate. You can become a member, $30 a month, which will help us not only sustain shows like this, but will actually contribute to us financing the projects that we have on the ground in Uganda, in Peru, in Sierra Leone, and so many other places. We have conferences that we are planning, and so many great benefits will come from being a member of African Unity Initiative. The actual social activism playbook, you will get that for free. And you will get the updated version unlike everybody else who's a non-member, you will get the updated version as we update it throughout the year. You will also get the unedited version, because the other version, the non-membership version, will be the very abridged version, because we can't give away all of our secrets and all of our strategies. So,
Right.
you know, that's members only. And like I say always, we love you guys. We actualize African unity through our efforts and through our work. And, you know, we'll see you guys tomorrow for another edition of ASAP. So educational. This Black
Yes.
Freedom Struggle Week is going to be so dope. So keep listening and stay tuned.
Stay strong.